Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We are undertaking a psychological autopsy of a totalitarian regime. Instead of just doing a basic recap of George Orwell's classic, 1984, we're going to look non-literally at the opening chapters. We're looking way beneath the surface to examine the real-world architecture of this fictional society, uncovering some pretty profound truths about power, perception, and the human mind along the way.
Look, we all know the general plot of Winston Smith's incredibly bleak life in Airstrip One. So, we're going to look past the literal story today and completely deconstruct the subtext. Our goal is to dismantle the underlying systemic pillars of manipulation that this text outlines. We're looking at the actual blueprints of absolute control. And right off the bat, we get hit with that famous phrase, brilliantly illustrating where this control begins. Big Brother is watching you. Now, this isn't just a literal poster tacked to a wall on a dingy hallway smelling of boiled cabbage. It's a powerful metaphor that immediately sets a claustrophobic tone for a society built entirely on paranoia. It represents the total internalization of authority, where the eyes follow you, forcing you to police your own actions before the state even has to step in.
To really understand this, we're going to systematically dismantle the mechanics of this power by looking at 6 systemic pillars: the architecture of constant surveillance, the mutability of history, controlling reality through language, manufacturing emotion and hate, the anatomy of thought crime, and finally, the illusion of hope.
All right, let's jump right into pillar number 1, the architecture of constant surveillance. We're looking at how a physical environment is deliberately engineered from the ground up to eradicate the private self. Think about the telescreen. It is a fantastic metaphor for the absolute impossibility of isolation. It's this instrument that babbles endless, numbing statistics about pig iron quotas, but it's simultaneously monitoring every whisper, every nervous tick, and every little facial twitch you make. You literally have to live from habit that becomes instinct, assuming every single sound is overheard. It's the complete and utter evaporation of personal space.
Moving on to our second pillar, the mutability of history.
So moving inward from physical space, how do you kill objective truth? Well, the regime does it by controlling time itself. Take the memory hole process, which is the exact job Winston does at the Ministry of Truth. Step 1. Identify a political error. Step 2. Generate a lie to fix it. Step 3. Overwrite the record. And Step 4. Destroy the original document in the hidden furnaces. This brilliantly illustrates how the completely abstract, terrifying concept of reality control isn't executed by magic. No, it's executed through a remarkably mundane, continuous, and frankly boring bureaucratic procedure. And here is where it gets wild. Consider how data is weaponized. Take the example of shoe production from the Ministry of Plenty. The forecast was 145 million. The actual reported was 62 million. But Winston just rewrites the forecast to 57 million, so the party can publicly claim they overfulfilled their quota. The crucial point here? All of this data is entirely fabricated. It turns the very concept of statistics into a psychological weapon used to completely untether citizens from reality.
Which brings us to Pillar 3, controlling reality through language.
Let's see how this builds. Once you control the past, you have to control cognition in the present, right? And you do that by shrinking the boundaries of language itself. Think about the contrast between old speak and new speak. I mean, why have words like excellent or splendid when you can just say double plus good? The stated goal of newspeak is not to expand your vocabulary, but to cut it down to the absolute bone. It's essentially a psychological amputation of human expression. By destroying words, the regime makes complex, unorthodox thought quite literally impossible to articulate.
And that extreme linguistic compression leads straight to doublethink. This is the ability to hold simultaneously 2 opinions which cancel out, knowing them to be contradictory and believing in both of them anyway. This demands the ultimate psychological subjugation. It requires citizens to consciously induce unconsciousness, effortlessly accepting the party's constantly shifting reality without their brains just completely breaking.
Okay, let's look at pillar number 4, manufacturing emotion and hate.
So your history is erased, and your thoughts are mathematically restricted. What's left? The regime turns to the deepest, most primal level of control, replacing genuine human connection with state-mandated hostility. Think about the 2 minutes hate and its prescribed targets. You've got Emmanuel Goldstein, foreign armies, and even abstract concepts like freedom of speech. We have to contrast the sterile, measured bureaucracy of Winston's day job with the feral, visceral horror of this daily ritual, where perfectly normal citizens are whipped into a screaming, kicking frenzy.
This rage is completely abstract and undirected. It's like a psychological blow lamp that the party can switch from one object to another in a fraction of a second. This manufactured rage completely overrides natural human empathy and familial loyalties, replacing them with a subhuman, rhythmic devotion to the state. And this is exactly why it matters. It's the ultimate destruction of the family unit. We literally see how children are systematically conditioned to gleefully turn their own parents over to the thought police. It's absolutely chilling.
That leads us right into the fifth pillar, the anatomy of thought crime.
So here's the absolute kicker. All these pillars, the surveillance, the history rewriting, the language reduction, the manufactured hate, they all converge to create an environment where merely sitting in an alcove and opening a blank diary is a fatal act of rebellion. Thought crime does not entail death. Thought crime is death. This creates such a powerful climax to our understanding of the system. It proves that the individual is systematically annihilated the very second an unorthodox thought forms in the mind. You don't die when the bullet hits you, you die the exact moment you realize you are an individual. Finally, our sixth pillar, the illusion of hope.
In this totally airtight, inescapable system of control, we have to look for a way out. Where does the potential for disruption lie? Well, the grim sociological reality of this society is found in the contrast between the party and the proles. The party is monolithic, heavily monitored, and completely paralyzed by orthodoxy. Then you have the proles, who make up a massive 85% of the population. They are largely disregarded by the surveillance state, and they possess this explosive, organic energy. But the tragedy? They squander this frightening, unharnessed power on trivial squabbles, like fighting over flimsy tin saucepans in the street. The immense power is there, for sure, but the consciousness is not.
I want to leave you with this non-literal, philosophical provocation to really chew on. If there is no physical record to prove a memory, does the past still exist? By deconstructing these mechanics of control, we're forced to consider the incredibly fragile nature of truth, memory, and freedom in the face of absolute power. Seriously, what happens to reality when the evidence of it simply disappears? Sit with that as you process this explainer. Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep questioning the architecture around you.